Burnt out leaders rarely succeed. Learn how a successful entrepreneur went from ER and ICU to prioritizing his health first. Listeners also learn quick and easy techniques to help reduce their stress. During his 35-year career, he had the privilege to work in a variety of positions including sales, marketing, college professor, and small business owner. Each role had one thing in common: high stress, to the point he was diagnosed with stress-related diabetes and ended up in the hospital with a severe case of diabetic ketoacidosis, a few hours away from being comatose. It was a reality check for him. When you don't have your health, not much else matters. He knew it was time for him to walk away, even though he had a great job, secure income, and good benefits. Interestingly, his co-workers and peers were very supportive, and most of them told him that they admired his decision to put his health first before his career because they were contemplating doing the same thing. It was then he realized it wasn't just him, and now he helps other hard-driving leaders to avoid his mistakes and immensely benefit from the wonderful tools and techniques he's learned and experienced firsthand. Please welcome Pete Alexander. All right, everybody, welcome to Money 911, Health, Wealth, and Peace of Mind. You got to have peace of mind to find those divine ways to go. And I'm really excited today. And Pete is with us, and a fabulous intro. But I want to really get right into it. You have a really neat story about going through your ER, right? In the ICU, and what happened in your life that made you shift? We all have a shift, but maybe you could share with us what happened to you.
Sure, Chris, and thank you for having me on the show, and I really appreciate your listeners' time as well. So Stress and we've had a lifelong relationship, shall we say.
Right.
I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, and what that taught me was pretty much to try and ignore the stressors in life. And so when I became an adult, I just kept on trying to ignore it, ignore it, ignore it. And my first real significant where I noticed that stress was affecting me happened in 2008. It was a perfect storm of stressful activities, including my dad dying, my mom needing help because she had major surgery, and I was running a business with several employees, and my kids were small, and my marriage was heading for a divorce. Just a few things all pounded on my
Right.
shoulders, and I ended up getting diagnosed with stress-induced diabetes after I lost 30 pounds in 30 days.
Mm.
But like many entrepreneurs, I didn't listen to my body about what stress was doing to it. So I continued to burn the candle at both ends for another 10 years until
Oh.
I ended up in the emergency room with a severe case of diabetic ketoacidosis. And for your listeners who don't know what that is, basically, my body was eating itself alive
Mm.
because of my stress. And the crazy thing is that at that point I had gone back to corporate, and my boss, who knew I was in the emergency room, texts me on my second day in ICU. Okay, so I got transferred because my blood sugars were so skyrocketing that the medical grade glucometers could not read it. They had to
Mm.
estimate, and they estimated my blood sugars were 8 to 10 times higher than what they were supposed to be. And so I'm on my second day in ICU, and they're checking my blood every half an hour to an hour. So you don't get any rest when you're in the hospital, by the way,
Right.
and
Right.
at least not more than half an hour at a time.
Yeah.
And So I get this text, and my numbers at this point, my blood sugars had come down into more reasonable. They were high, but they were more reasonable. The glucometers could read it. And so it wasn't critical anymore. Well, I get this text from my boss at roughly 6 a.m. saying, you have a webinar you need to run at 8 o'clock. What are you going to do about it? And first of all, what a surprise. I didn't have my work laptop in the ICU with me. So all I had was my phone. And so I start sitting there and I'm doing everything I can to try and reschedule this webinar, pushing the boundaries of my phone. And the nurse who was assigned to me at that time came over, took my blood, and my numbers, it was like a 90-degree angle. So it had been coming down, and all of a sudden it skyrocketed straight back up. And she says to me, a matter of factly, she says, you realize, I'm sitting there on the phone trying to reschedule. She says, you realize that's what put you in this hospital bed in the first place. And, people, my friends, family, they all had told me, you got to manage your stress. They could see what it was doing to me. And it took the words of pretty much close to a complete stranger who had nothing, nothing to gain from telling me that, for me to actually listen. And I just, I spent the rest of that day thinking about, what am I doing? I'm trading my health for my career. And that's a really bad trade. So, I looked at my finances, I, looked at my, job prospects, and I just thought, you know what? I need to take care of myself. And so I decided to, the next 2 days later, I got out of ICU. And the day after that, I left that job, or resigned from that job. And I started focusing on, my health first. And I started, experimenting with different stress relief tools and techniques. And many of them worked, some of them didn't. And I started getting much better. And the crazy thing is, if you look at pictures of me back from 2008 and you look at pictures of me now, other than a little bit more gray hair, I look younger today than I looked 14 years ago. And that is crazy. That's what stress does to us. It just ages us rapidly. And, and the thing is our bodies, give us signals. And my body was giving me plenty of signals, back in 2008, well before I got the diabetes. And, well before I ended up in the emergency room. And it just, if we continue to ignore them, we give our bodies no choice but to keep upping the ante until something happens where it's going to be something you have to deal with for the rest of your life.
That is so true. I mean, I can really relate to that because I had something similar. I had a pituitary tumor,
Mm.
and it was a benign tumor, and I had the options of drug surgery, right? And I was like, I don't think so. I was in my late 40s, and I didn't like the idea of being incapacitated and on drugs. And I just prayed to God, give me an answer here and show me what to do. It was prayer, fasting, cleanses, and took about a decade, but it beat it. Thank God, it beat the tumor. But I saw it was just like what you're talking about. The brain, it was like a nuclear reactor because I was in fear. I was in jealousy. I was going through an emotional relationship with somebody, and I was jealous of what they were doing with other people, maybe I wasn't aware of, and just the turmoil. And that, almost killed me. And that shift, because like you said, what is wealth without your health? And really, health is wealth.
It is, because, what I always mention to people is, think about when you've been really, really sick, let's say with the flu. most of us have had at least one time where we were really sick with the flu. Did we feel anything other, like doing anything other than lying in bed? Probably not. And when all we have energy to do is just lie there in bed, we're no good to our businesses. We're no good to making any money. We're no good to the people who are important to us in our lives. Nothing. And the fact of the matter is, if you lose your health, you're not going to have your wealth for that long, because either you're not going to last, and well, guess what? Now your money is hopefully going to an heir maybe, but you're not going to get any benefit from it, because or you're going to blow all of it having to do all of the medical support that you need because you didn't take care of your health in the first place.
Exactly.
So it's just
Exactly.
it is so health is wealth is, I'm sure most people have heard that, but it really, really is true.
And the problem is that most people are so stressed, and
Hmm.
the way that the world is going right now, there's not enough time to even stop to
Yeah.
even feel the signals, like, and the signals come like, I got a headache. This headache's been
Hmm.
going on for 5 years now. There's something going on
Hmm.
here.
Hmm.
Take a moment,
Hmm.
take five and check it out. What's going on here? So, and most of us, it takes a traumatic, right, experience to
Yeah.
shift or shock. So, the techniques and the art, and I got to just throw this in here, what I found too with 32 years in my practice
Hmm.
around healthy money, most of it is mindset. Is,
Oh, absolutely.
I felt, less applications out, and I was dealing with more of the mindset of people's stress that stops them from being abundant and
Hmm.
prosperous.
Hmm.
So, and it affects health, wealth, and everything that we do. So you've so what did you come up with to get rid of the stress? How do you process this into your life, right?
Well, you do a lot of different things, but the thing that I found that was most beneficial, to go back to, mention about we don't have the time. So
Yeah.
I was looking at these different books, and most of the books that were out there, they basically, it was like a 300 page book on deep breathing or yoga or
Right.
meditation and stuff. And all of those are great activities, but who has time to read a
Right.
300 page book on meditation? No, I just don't have it. The reality is, most of us, because we're so busy, we have at best 5 minutes.
Right.
Before we have to go into, let's say, an important meeting or an
Right.
important phone call or a conversation we have to have with somebody, or we've got this project that we got to get done, whatever it happens to be. And so the secret sauce that I found was to find one thing at least that you can do for a minute or two a day. And if that works for you, utilize it on a daily basis. Because the key is, if you start doing whatever that activity is that helps you ground yourself, helps calm you down, and you utilize that on a daily or multiple times a day if you need, it's only a couple of minutes, right? So
Right.
if you do that, then the compound benefits over time will be enormous.
Absolutely.
The key is you gotta start. And
You
that's the thing that I find with so many people. They go, oh, yeah, I'll get to it when I get to it, because and you're on the express train to that catastrophic activity that's going to happen to you.
right.
So there's, and it's so frustrating when I engage with people who end up in burnout, or
Yeah.
with a chronic disease, because they ignored their bodies. And the
Right.
reality is, as you mentioned earlier, most of the stress are these days is, it's up here for us, because our bodies are actually the exact same bodies back that were around during the Stone Age. We have a little bit better grooming, I would assume, but it's the same body.
Yeah.
And the reality is, back then our bodies were, fight, flight, freeze, basically all intended for if we have to deal with a T-Rex, a saber-toothed tiger, right? Whatever
Mhm.
that is. But what about general worry, anxiety, fear, those kind of things that we let our minds fester inside of us for extended periods of time? Well, what ends up happening is that keeps on dumping adrenaline, cortisol into our bodies over and over and over again. And
Right.
what that
Right.
does is it creates cellular inflammation in our bodies. And that cellular inflammation, if not handled by stress relief activities, what ends up happening is it leads to chronic disease.
Right. Right. And you know, as a side note to confirm what you just said, my husband used to tell me, "Why don't you just, when you're done with work, just take 5, just sit down and be still?" And I was like, "Never!" For like a decade or something, he'd tell me that. I was like, "No, I gotta work. I gotta work. I gotta get
Yeah,
this done."
yeah.
Then he left Earth, and it was like,
Oh,
I needed to hear him. I needed to communicate. I need some peace here. I started to do it. I started after, dinner. I'd sit there and just be still. I didn't do any big om or anything
mhm,
fancy,
mhm.
any particular. I just let go, let God, just relax, just let it all go. And then I would start to download the answers, the what to do the next day. Everything's okay, right? Get the comforting that I'm not alone, right? It is so healing, and it doesn't have to be fancy, right?
That doesn't at all. And it's 5 minutes. And if you do it after dinner each night, guess what? If you practice this regularly, at some point you don't even have to think about it. You just do it because it becomes
Exactly.
habit. It becomes
Yeah.
habit. And that's the thing. And the the reality is, what is 5 minutes a day when it is going to pay off in spades in the
Right.
future for you? I mean,
It is
that's the
so
thing that's
true.
crazy. I mean, people go, "Oh, I just don't have time for it." It's like 5 minutes.
I know. Exactly. And you know what you said, which I totally related to? The older I get, the younger I feel.
Yes.
So, but I'm also, I'm vegan. I take care of myself,
Mhm,
make juice. I mean, I'm overboard on
mhm.
what I do, but it pays off because then I have the energy to do what I need to do to reach people and do what I need in the business. Because when you have an assignment, right, Pete, you've got a laundry list of
Yeah.
all the blessings that you can give people. So you want to be at your
Absolutely.
best.
You want to have that energy and want to have that clear mind. I mean, and that's the thing is if you're performing at your best, you're going to make a difference.
Right.
And if you don't have their health, you're not going to make a difference. It's just
No.
that simple.
And then you're a burden on other people
Hmm.
or your bank account if you don't have that figured out.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Now, because people are, we're all caught up in what we're caught up in, and there's no judgment on any of it, right? Because everybody's where they're at. But you talk about good stress and bad stress,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So good.
So that's the thing. Stress itself it's not a bad word. I mean,
Mhm.
that's what a lot of people think. Oh, I got to take care of all stress. Well, we all have stress. I mean, I'm sure,
Yeah.
Chris, there probably something in your mind when you were clicking into the Zoom. I know it is for me as a guest.
Oh,
I think,
yeah.
okay, I'm assuming that my internet connection's working, right? So it's like,
There goes my
it would,
Mac mail broken
it-
again.
exactly. So there's certain stresses, that happen, but
Right.
what we want to do, and we want to really think about what is it that we need to focus on when it comes to stress. So good stress is anything that we experience um, that happens as a result of doing things that we are fully committed and want to do. So, for example, anything to do with your business that you're excited about. Well, so let's say a deadline or maybe a presentation you're giving or something like that. That's good stress. Yeah, it's stress, but it's good stress because it's doing something that you want to do, you feel like that is going to make a difference. What we want to focus on in stress relief is two flavors of negative stress. It's also referred to as distress. One is ruminating about the past. There's a couple of things about that. One, if you've ever worried about something that happened or didn't happen in the past, or you did or didn't do in the past, and you have guilt, that's a classic one with rumination. The fact is, it's in the past. You cannot change it. What we can do is we can learn from the positive learnings of that event so that we don't do that in the future. But we have to let it go. So don't keep churning about some guilt you have about something that happened or didn't happen, or you did or didn't do in the past. So that's one flavor, if we can manage to let that go. The other is anxiety about something that may or may not happen about the future. So a classic example is let's say you have a difficult conversation that you need to have with one of your employees or a customer or something like that, or a family member, whatever it happens to be. And you start thinking about, oh, this is going to go terrible. It's blah, blah, blah. What ends up happening when we think about it being the worst case scenario, we often manifest the worst case.
Imagine that.
Exactly, because that's the energy we're sending towards it.
Yes.
But instead of doing that, why not expect a magnificent outcome? So, like, for example, if you have, if you don't like to speak and you have to give a presentation, or you have to have that difficult conversation, instead of worrying about it going poorly, imagine, if you're given the presentation, imagine 5 seconds after your last word, you get a standing ovation. Or right after your conversation you've had, you feel fantastic because it went exactly as you had hoped, not as you had feared. So if we can take care of as much of the ruminating about the past and anxiety about the future, everything else will be a piece of cake for us when it comes to stress.
Yes, that is so true. Talking to my younger self, right? I wasted so much of my life worrying about what the past or the future. And I bet you everyone can raise their hand there,
Yep.
but
Yep.
that's key. And it is a practice, wouldn't you say, because daily there's always a negative in, the brain is trying to, it's almost sabotage it. And you have to be counteractive and shift it. And I shift it with gratitude a lot, because a lot of it is just a frequency of being on Earth and what's happening planetarily all around us. So that energy comes in and almost look for something to be grateful. That's how I project out of it, blast
Yeah.
out of it.
Gratitude's my favorite stress relief tool as well. And you don't have to have gratitude for only, like, oh, my home or my
Right.
car, no,
Right.
it's my wife and I do a gratitude exercise every evening. I
Yeah.
ask her, what are you grateful for? And she asks me, what am I grateful for? And we just recap the day.
Exactly.
And it's so wonderful. So it's all, almost every time it's minor things,
Yeah.
but it's wonderful to have that gratitude, because it sends the universe the positive energy that you want to attract back.
Exactly. And you're initiating it. I do the same thing, before I go to sleep. And when I wake up, before I set my feet on the ground, I think of at least 5 things I'm grateful for. And, someone I connected with Pete today, and it was a heart
Exactly.
connection. Right. Or, I saw a butterfly remind me of my mom, or whatever. Right. And I'm so
Absolutely.
grateful. And it's like, it's the best food you can have. Right. The
Oh, it's
gratitude.
it's fantastic. And it's interesting about waking up. There's a book called The Happiness Equation. And there's a couple of things that the author talked about there. One was, and I read this book probably 10 years ago, but at the time he said that whenever we wake up in the morning, we should be grateful for waking up, because there's, roughly 7 billion people on Earth. And over the, back to the Stone Age time, what they estimate, maybe there's been 130, 140 billion people who have ever lived on Earth, but only 7 billion are alive today. And you're one of those 7 billion. So you're one of, only, being alive today, one of only, 14% or whatever the calculation of it was, that has the opportunity to live today. So that's
Right.
one thing to be grateful for. The other one that I remember very specifically that probably would be of interest to your listeners is that about finances. So he mentioned that at that time, the average earner all over the world made roughly $5,000 per year.
Mm.
And so that was, 50% of the workers making $5,000 per year. So if you make more than $5,000, you're making more than half the people in the world. So you're making more than 3.5 billion, let's say, people. But here's the thing. If you're lucky enough to make $50,000 a year, $50,000 a year, you are making more than 95% of the world's population.
Wow.
So instead of looking at, oh, I'm only making $60,000, right?
Right.
How about looking at it from the fact, well, I'm in the top 5% of the world's earners.
Definitely. That definitely shifts that whole feeling for sure.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's the art that I can tell that you've worked, you've been working on, right? Because you do
It's
that all the time, right?
exactly. I mean, it's, there's, we all have good days and bad days, but it's amazing how I'm able to snap out of my bad day mentality with my mindset,
Right.
because, what was it? Saturday or Sunday. Sunday was one of those days that, things didn't go great, culminating with our dryer breaking. I mean,
Oh,
the motor broke down, and it's an old washer and dryer set. I'm thinking, crap. Well, the reality is I knew this was going to happen.
right.
I knew it was going to happen. But instead of going, oh, now I got to buy a new one, I thought,
Uh-huh.
wait a minute. It's Black Friday weekend. And so
Right.
I got sale. I was able to get a set on sale, and
Perfect.
yeah, it's going to take a while to get it delivered, but at
Hmm.
least I did, that
Yeah,
you spin it the way that you can
exactly.
so that you can stay positive about the situation.
Exactly. Make it a good story for sure.
Exactly.
Now you've got a video series, right? You
Mhm.
launched on Amazon. What's that called?
So the book is on Amazon. It's
Mm-hmm.
Lighten Your Day: Fast, Easy, and
Okay.
Effective Stress Relief. It's in book as in printed book version. It's on Kindle version.
Okay.
There's also an audiobook with my voice talking through it. So that's available. And there's also a an online video course on stress relief called Lighten Your Day as well. That can be found on udemy.com, udemy.com,
Udemy. UD what?
udemy.com.
Okay. Okay, cool. Very cool. Well, busy entrepreneurs, if they don't focus on their health, they lose it, right? If you don't
They
use it,
will.
you lose it. That's just the facts
Absolutely.
of life.
It's
Y-
you and I both have experienced that. And,
Absolutely.
and it
Absolutely.
happens. It happens. We can only do so much. We can only do so much. So, you got to
Right.
take care of your health.
What is one little tip that you can give everybody to walk away with, something that they could do besides gratitude that they could do to relieve some stress?
Oh, one of my favorite ones as well, in addition to gratitude, is a visualization exercise. This only takes 1 minute. Now, the
Okay.
only caveat is if you're listening to this while you're driving a car, riding your bike or something, pull over before
Yeah,
doing it,
right.
because I don't want you
Right.
doing that with your eyes closed.
Yeah,
Um, so
right.
basically what we do is go ahead and close your eyes and take a deep breath in. And I want you to go in your mind to a place you like to relax. Maybe it's the beach, maybe it's a park, maybe it's a lake, maybe it's your backyard, maybe it's a spa. Wherever that is that you like to relax, go there now and take in all of your senses. So what do you feel? Do you feel the sun on your face? Maybe the grass or the sand under your feet? And what do you smell? Do you smell the fresh air? Maybe the lotion from the spa? And what do you hear? Do you hear the wind blowing through the trees? Maybe the water splashing on shore? And what do you see? Do you see the blue sky? Maybe the green of the trees or the grass? Whatever it is, take it all in and take another deep breath in. And open your eyes. Simple visualization exercise that can get you grounded. You can do that right before you have to have that conversation with someone. You can, let's say you pull up in front of for a sales call, and before you make the sales call, whatever thing, perceived stressful exercise, 1 minute of visualization going to your happy place can make a huge difference.
Beautiful. I like that happy place. I'm going to the Redwoods.
There you go. That's absolutely
my happy place.
Yeah, that's why I live near the Olympic National Park, because I love hiking, and there's something about connecting with nature that is
absolutely
so fantastic.
Absolutely. Total connection, total grounding. Hey, well, it's really been fun talking with you, and really excited that we got to share some gratitude moments and talk about, get rid of some of this stress, and everybody can do that visualization as long as they're not driving. It's amazing because that I had Greg Braden on God Code. He was talking about when they found the ancient scriptures from way back as they're describing how people prayed. That's exactly what they instead of thinking, oh, I hope that that, they're thanking God for they're already feeling right what they were praying for, what they were visualizing, what they were imagining, and they're in gratitude that it's already happened, right?
Because you're sending the positive energy. The universe wants us to succeed.
Yeah,
it does. But
right.
the code that I learned, and you probably have experienced this as well, is that the universe does not know positive from negative. So if you're saying, oh, I don't want this to happen, the universe says, whoops. Oh, you want this to happen?
Right. Because you put so much energy. I don't want it. I don't want it. Oh, yeah. Oh, here you go.
So whenever you sending it out to the universe, make sure it's what you want, not what you don't want.
Right. I was praying for rain the other day and we got a flood. Yeah, for sure. All right, Pete. Well, we'll look forward to talking to you again, and really enjoyed sharing some space with you today.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for having me on your wonderful show, and thank you for your listeners' time as well.
My joy. There's so much to learn about healthy money. I hope today's discussion brings you one step closer to securing and protecting your future. So you can get started on the right foot, go to meetwithchrismeller.com and schedule your free financial fitness strategy session. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe to Money 911 so you don't miss our next episode, which includes health, wealth, and peace of mind.